anniversary, the day that I got diagnosed, the doctor said, you have stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. We are living our life in a way and instilling the values in my kids. So he knows what to do if I'm not here tomorrow. When we hug, we don't let go for 10 seconds. You never know when that moment is going to be taken away from you. I'm now realizing that in order to give everything to my kids, I need to give everything to myself first. The sleep, the water, the nutrition, the mindful movement, everything that RNT has helped me establish this year. I have never felt this healthy in my life. That's at 39. I turn 40 next year. When I wake up in the morning and my alarm goes off, I don't feel the need to snooze. I've become so addicted to this feeling that I never want to go back. Those photos remind me of the journey that we went through, how I want to feel every day. That energy, that beauty, that compassion, that confidence. I had never seen abs in my life before. My biceps, the cuts in my arms. Thank you, RNT, for that.
Okay, so Nisha, taking back around a year now, what were the series of trigger moments for you to kickstart your RNT journey?
So I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2019. Fast forward a couple of years, my husband, Bhavin, had joined RNT last year, and I was in remission on my journey. He asked me to join him on the RNT journey, but I was not quite ready at the time. I was in remission, and I felt like I had missed out on things for the past 2 years while I was going through chemotherapy, in terms of food and drinking, and, I had limitations while I was in chemo. And so when he asked me last year, I said, no, thank you. I just don't think I'm ready and I'm not there. Well, fast forward a year, I saw his transformation. We, saw what he was putting into it day to day, every day in our house. And he asked me again, and he said, do you think you want to do this with me? And I said, you know what? I'm ready. I decided it was going to be a gift to my body, a gift to myself, that I needed to put myself in the best place possible. And so I jumped in and I didn't look back. And I think the biggest thing that inspired me is that I realized that you were plant-based, Akash, and I saw your photographs, and that was very inspirational to me. I realized that as the owner of this company, RNT, you had some of the very same values that I did. And that was basically what the last step in me signing up. And I said, I'm going to do this, and I want to do it with a company where someone believes in the same thing that I do.
Amazing. And potentially a personal question for me is what specifically about me being plant-based drew you in?
So I have been vegetarian my whole life since the age of 7. And the last couple of years, I had always been wanting to go 100% vegan, but I didn't know how. I had no idea. I didn't have the resources. I didn't know how to nourish my body appropriately in terms of protein, nutrients, anything really. And so that was really what drew me in. I said, I think this program is going to help me transition from being vegetarian to vegan. So literally the December before I signed up for RNT, I was still vegetarian. But when I filled out my intake form, I said I wanted to do this journey vegan. And so I woke up one day and I went 100% vegan.
Oh, amazing. And you've never gone back?
No.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So amazing. 9 months later, here I am, 100% vegan. And yeah, that's thanks to R&D.
Oh, that's incredible. And what day did you start vegan? Was it January 1st or did you start on the 9th?
January 14th, the first day of the program.
9th. Yeah.
9th. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I went to bed vegetarian, but I woke up vegan.
It's one way to do it.
So yeah, I knew, like we talk about putting the blinders on, but I was like, this is the time. If I'm going to put my blinders on all around, I'm going to put my blinders on for this transition as well, going from vegetarian to vegan and giving up the dairy products.
Okay. So you started this off by mentioning that you were recovering from stage 4, was it? Stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Correct.
So if we can circle back, talk us through that experience of when it happened, what is Hodgkin's lymphoma, and how old you were? How old were you when this all happened?
Sure. So I am 39 today, and I was diagnosed at the age of 37 in 2019, or sorry, 2021. Prior to that, for the last 2 years, so we had made a big move from Washington, D.C. to Dallas, Texas. When we got to Dallas, I started to not feel well. I was working out at the time and following a different nutrition program. And so was lifting 3 days a week, a similar structure to this, but not with the same details. And I started to get lower back pain. And so I presented myself at the physician, and they did x-rays, MRIs, and the doctor said, I see that there's inflammation in your body, but we can't target what it is. And so from my general practitioner, I was sent to a number of specialty doctors. I was sent to GI. I was sent to rheumatology. I was even sent to the oncologist. Everybody did, a full panel. And I kept getting the same answer for 2 years. We see that there's inflammation in your body, but we don't know what it is, including the oncologist who turned me away the first time I showed up at his office. And GI actually told me that I had a mild fatty liver and that I could lose some weight. At the time, I was 120 pounds. And so I said, okay, if I need to lose weight, probably need to change my diet. And I quickly went from 120 to 100 pounds in a number of months. And I attributed that to my change in diet and my physical activity. But in fact, it was the cancer.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I got down very lean to 100 pounds. And I still wasn't feeling well. So this was a journey of 2 years where I was developing different symptoms. It started with the lower back pain. Then I started to get a mild fever, which then would run around the clock. I started to get itching on my trunk. I generally was laying horizontal. Like when my kids got home from school at 3 p.m., I was horizontal on the couch. I could not help Bhavin make dinner, help take care of the kids. I would wake up in night sweats, shivering. He would have to get me medication. And until it kicked in for 20 to 30 minutes, I couldn't go back to bed. I was just in bed, shivering. And all of these symptoms presented themselves one after the other. And that lasted for 2 years. And I kept telling Bhavin, I said, something is wrong. I'm not going to give up. So I just continued to see different physicians. I showed up at the oncologist. Again, I went to visit my mom who had had knee surgery. And I was sitting on the sofa watching TV. And I went like this. And I felt a lump in my throat. And I said, whoa, that's strange. And my brother was there at the time. He's a physician. And so I turned to him and I said, Sanj, I was like, I have a lump in my throat. And mind you, I was going through all of these symptoms parallel with the time that COVID was happening.
Mm.
And I had had COVID twice prior. And so my brother said, well, sometimes there's swollen lymph nodes from an infection that you've had, and they stay there. And so I didn't think twice about it, but I was like, that's really strange. And so when I returned home from my parents' place, I scheduled a follow-up appointment with the oncologist because the enlarged lymph node in my throat was very concerning, in addition to all the symptoms that I was still feeling. So I presented myself at the oncologist, and he said, okay, we need to get that biopsied right away. Well, they biopsied, and the following week, our world was pulled out from underneath us. It was mine and Bevan's anniversary, actually, it was our 10th wedding anniversary, the day that I got diagnosed. And him and I sat in that room and held hands. And the doctor said, you have stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I said, stage 4. And so it was basically, it had spread all over my body. It was in my throat. It was in my thoracic region. And in my back near my spinal region. So I said, what happens if I decide not to get treatment or go through with chemotherapy? And he said, well, eventually the disease will take you. And so yeah, that was a wake-up call. I started treatment the very next week. Number of things had to happen. I had to have surgery to have my chemotherapy port put in so that they could give me chemo. And my regimen was going to be chemotherapy every 2 weeks for 6 months, 12 treatments.
Wow.
Luckily, I had a pretty good prognosis where the cancer responded to the chemotherapy. And here I am telling the story 2 years later. So I just recently, a couple weeks ago, got cleared.
Wow.
And I went from remission to being completely cured. So I'm just very blessed and grateful for all the small things in life, just getting to get up every day and put my feet on the floor.
Wow. So for 2 years, you didn't know what was going on. You just had an accumulation of symptoms, and no one spotted anything.
No one. Everyone could tell that it was inflammation, but no one knew that it was cancer. And in the back of my mind, I knew it was cancer. I didn't want to say it out loud. So for 2 years, I never said that word, if that makes sense. Thinking that's not what I was going to be diagnosed with. But the day I was diagnosed, I turned to Bhavin and I said, I knew this is what it was, but I was waiting for someone to diagnose me. And so, yeah, a lot of healing has taken place since then. There was a lot of guilt associated with the diagnosis. Why me? I have been vegetarian my whole life, thinking I was eating well. I've been active since the age of 6. Have been dancing my whole life, recreationally, competitively. And when I got to grad school, I started doing Pilates, rock climbing, and yoga, and have maintained all of that basically my entire life. And so I said, why me? I think, I thought I was eating well. I thought I was staying active. At the time I got diagnosed, I was lifting weights for the first time in my life, because I had been reading about the research surrounding the benefits of strength training. Yeah. But yeah.
And how did you find peace with that question? Or have you found peace with that question?
I think sitting here today, I have finally made peace with the guilt that I felt the last couple of years, knowing that it was not my fault. There are a lot of other contributing factors. We still don't know why people are diagnosed with cancer. And so I think I find solace in science, knowing that we don't truly have an answer. And so I have had to remind myself daily that this was not my fault. And it's difficult not to minimize anyone else's cancer journey. I'm grateful that I was diagnosed with this and have had cancer, because it has changed the way that I live, if that makes sense.
In what respect?
It has taught me to quiet my life, and really tune in and be present, especially with my kids. I think prior to that, I had put a lot of pressure on myself to do this or do that, or parent a certain way or live a certain way, especially when it came to my kids, and also being a spouse and partner to Bobbin. And I learned to let go of a lot of that. I learned to live in the moment and appreciate, and be grateful, honestly, for every day and all the blessings that we have in our life. And I did not, that was not my thought process prior to. I was always trying to achieve something or tick something off the list or get somewhere. Um, and also, after going through the RNT journey this year, as far as health goes, it's really taught me to take care of basic needs. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I was not doing that previously. I had little kids. 2 to 3 liters of water a day. I was maybe drinking 64 ounces because that was the recommended amount that I had heard before. Getting my steps daily. I never had that kind of mindful movement. I would go and work out for an hour every day, but then I was sedentary for the rest of the day. When I was sitting for a couple hours at a time, it never reminded me, hey, I need to get up. I've been sitting here for a couple of hours. I've eliminated a lot of the stress. I think stress is a big thing. Maybe that's potentially what got me, the last couple of years, but I've learned to just let go of a lot. And
what were some of the big stressful things you think you don't really dwell on or think about anymore now that you've faced your mortality, so to speak?
So I think a couple of the big things in our life were, over the last 10 years, we have made a couple of big moves, like major moves where we have taken our family from one end of the country to the other end of the country. And that has happened 4 times. And I was stressing a lot about, how we will maintain our life, how will I raise my kids, our day-to-day routine. And I think all of that running through my head daily eventually caught up with me. And the stress of, I stepped away from my career when my daughter was born almost 10 years ago now. It was the stress of a one income household and my husband traveling and being gone quite a bit, and me home alone with the kids as a result of that. So most major stressors were around our day-to-day life, honestly. The kids, how we function. Yeah.
And those things you don't get fazed by them as much?
I don't anymore. I think it also helps that my kids are a bit older now and a bit more self-sufficient. But I always ask myself, in a situation, is this the end of the world? And ultimately, 100% of the time, the answer to that has been no. It's not the end of the world. That situation is not the end of the world. As a family, we have faced cancer and come back from it. And I said, if we can all do that together, most of this other stuff is noise. And we can recover from mostly anything now that we've been down that journey. Because at the time when I got diagnosed, the kids were 7 and 5. That's little. That's a lot for a 7 and 5-year-old to wrap their head around. And now the C word, cancer, that's a regular word in our house. My kids can explain to you what that is, what that means, how it's affected mommy. And so I figured if we can get through that, we can get through anything. And that enables me to let go of a lot of things. And let go of a lot of the daily stressors now.
How did it impact the family and the children? you said they're 5 and 7. That's a very young age to be. And then your husband is traveling for work and running a very busy work schedule. And then you get hit by cancer. How did it affect you as a family, mentally, emotionally, and as a household?
Yeah. So, Bobbin was my rock. We handle stress very differently. And I think, he's a lot better at taking it on than I am. And mind you, we have, a lovely community of people, including our family who was flying in weekly. Um, my brother, Bobbin's brother, two sets of healthy parents. Um, and everyone was coming down in rotation to help out with the days that followed the chemotherapy, because the cycle would be I would receive chemo and I would not feel well for the week following the chemotherapy. And then the week that I was off, I would feel well, especially as the cancer cells were starting to disappear. And so people worked together to create a schedule, especially if Bobbin was traveling, because mind you, he was on a very large project for the last 3 years, coinciding with treatment. And so he was still traveling occasionally. And so we would call in reinforcement while he was not here to make sure that someone was here to help me with the kids and also help me with my recovery. Both of my kids took the journey in their own way based on their personalities. Our daughter tends to go inward. And so when we told her that mommy had cancer, she continued to do cartwheels in the living room. I don't think she really processed it, that mommy is sick and this is what's coming. And our son, he took it the complete opposite. He told me he's a big Avengers fan. And so immediately he said, Mommy, okay, the cancer is Thanos, which is the protagonist in the story. And as he said, we are the Avengers. And he said, we're going to beat Thanos. And he knew when my treatment would be happening. This is incredible for a 5-year-old. He has all the Avengers figurines. He would bring a different Avengers figurine to my nightstand the day of chemotherapy so that I could take it with me to the center. And then I would display that figurine while I was getting the treatment. And then he would always ask me, how are you doing? How did treatment go today? So, and I think my daughter was dealing with it much more internally. She didn't really want to talk about it or acknowledge the fact that mom was sick and that we were going through this. And as far as emotionally for Bobbin, he's a very calculated, level-headed person. So he was like, this is what's going to happen. This is what we have to do. And basically lined everything up. And so we all dealt with it a little bit differently, but ultimately came out the other end.
How did you deal with it?
I was a mess. I went completely inward, and hindsight being 2020, maybe this is the worst thing that I could have done, but I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to acknowledge that this was happening to me, especially when it came to communicating with another person. So I really didn't tell any friends or family until I knew I was in the clear that I had cancer. So the only people, keep in mind, that knew I was going through this were our immediate family and friends that were in the local vicinity. And it was almost easy to hide because it was COVID. And so, we weren't seeing people as much. And yeah, I went inward and kept everything to myself, because I also realized that every time I talked about it, all of the difficult feelings associated with it came up, and I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to feel the hurt, the pain, and the only way was through it, not around it. and I wasn't sure that I was ready to go straight through. And now that I'm on the other end, I always wonder, should I have reached out more for support? Would I have felt differently? But I'm not sure. At the moment, I did what I thought was best for me, and that was keeping it close to my chest, and close to my heart, and just dealing with it in the only way that I knew how.
Do you ever have a conversation with Bavin about what if this is it?
Yes, we still talk about that to this day, because there's no guarantee that the cancer won't come back. And that's for anybody, right? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. And there is a likelihood of reoccurrence pertaining to Hodgkin's lymphoma, especially when you're in your older age, when you reach your 60s. And so we do talk about, if I'm not around, we are living our life in a way and instilling the values in my kids. So he knows what to do if I'm not here tomorrow.
What are some of the values that you want to pass on to your kids?
I want our kids to be kind, open-minded, strong, independent. Those are, all the things we think about when we raise our kids, all the good traits. And it's easier said than done, because we are living in a world where we can be bombarded with negativity daily. But ultimately, I want them to try and channel whatever positivity they can on a day-to-day basis. And so, yeah, him and I work a lot towards making sure that that's what they see from us, because kids are sponges and they model what they see. So if they can see that from mom and dad, then hopefully they will go out into the world and model that as well. And so, we do talk about what happens if this comes back, or if for some reason I'm not here. But I'm fully confident that if there's a situation like that, the three of them will be okay.
What are some of the little things you now look at in life and feel really grateful for?
Quiet, everyday moments with my family. Being able to, we have a rule in our house that I learned from a friend, but when we hug, we don't let go for 10 seconds or 10 deep breaths. So, before I hopped on this podcast and I sent Bobbin and the kids off to school and work, I hugged them. I held on to them each for 10 seconds and enjoyed that long embrace, because you never know when that moment is going to be taken away from you. Other everyday joys, having family dinner together, just the four of us sitting and chatting about how our day is. Or Friday is family movie night, and the four of us sitting on one sofa under a giant blanket and sharing a movie together. These may seem like such simple things in life, but they are the ones that we need to embrace the most, because it can be taken away from us at any moment.
There's that amazing quote of, I think it's Confucius, who says, "We have two lives. The second one begins when we realize we only have one."
Absolutely. And I think that I resonate 100% with that quote. So yeah, that's when I feel like I'm really living now for the first time. And I'm not sure, like I said, I'm grateful for my diagnosis, because I do feel like I'm living a different way now than I was in the past. So yeah, I try to take in all the everyday moments, especially with my family. And also it's worth mentioning the everyday moments for myself. I try to find moments of joy and happiness for myself every day. And I think I had forgotten about that for a long time, especially when you become a spouse and when you become a mother. You almost forget to take care of yourself. And I forgot to take care of myself for the last 10 years since our daughter, from the day our daughter was born. I was like, I'm going to give everything to these kids. And I'm now realizing that in order to give everything to my kids, I need to give everything to myself first in terms of taking care of myself. And so that means the sleep, the water, the nutrition, the mindful movement, everything that RNT has helped me establish this year has been life-changing because it has helped me take care of myself physically and mentally so that I can take care of those around me, which is, ultimately my duty at the end of the day, I think.
When Bhavin floated the idea of joining RNT, what was some of what was your why, so to speak? Because it's always different when you're almost supporting someone else's journey at the beginning, but then it can kind of take its own journey of its own. But so, what was your why outside of supporting Bhavin?
Yeah, the why was this gift to myself and treating my body like a temple. It's so magnificent what our bodies are capable of in terms of recovery. This, my body helped me fight cancer and come out the other end. And I realized I needed to give something back to it and treat it with more respect than I previously was, which I thought I was, but I don't think I was appropriately. And so, yeah, ultimately, my why is giving my body the best chance possible every day. And because that's the only thing that I have control over. So we always talk about if I get diagnosed again, I hopefully won't have that guilt that I had the first time because I know I'm doing all of these things. And in my mind, hopefully I'll go straight to that point where I say, hey, I did everything that I could, everything that was in my control. This is something else, right? It's something that's out of my control. And ultimately, I think that's my why every day is that, I'm hoping this never comes back and that I don't have to ever face cancer again. But it's enough to motivate a person daily to get on the right track.
I can imagine. And how did you find getting on the right track? Did you face any challenges early on with the changes in your lifestyle and all these new habits?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing is getting plant-based protein. So when I first saw my plan the first 2 weeks, there was tofu, tempeh, protein supplements, and I could wrap my head around, having a protein shake. I had done that before. I could wrap my head around tofu. That was something that I had been eating regularly. Tempeh is what got me. I had tempeh before, but I wasn't very familiar with it. And I really didn't know how to cook it. And so but I knew I wanted to have it and not substitute it with something else, because if I was going to make this change for good, it was going to be something that I needed to figure out. So we still laugh about this, but during CTP, or cleansing the palate, I was blending my tempeh in a smoothie and having it raw. Because I just was like, I cannot eat that. And so Bob was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, listen, I have to get this tempeh down. And this is the only way that I know how. I was throwing tempeh in a blender with like berries and having a tempeh smoothie. And anyone
How did that taste?
They're like, wait, that's insane.
How did that taste? Looking back.
It was great. I'm able to drink anything and chug it. And I tasted the berries. So I was like, this is great. I can do this for 2 weeks.
I've never heard anyone blending tempeh.
And I'm a rule follower. So if you give me, a structure or a plan and you tell me to do something, I'm not likely to veer from it. I'm going to figure out a way to get it done. And so I think that mentality was really helpful in CTP, and even coming out of CTP. I ate the same thing that was on my processed meal plan for 9 months with very few changes. I've had edamame spaghetti every single day for lunch, except for when we're traveling since January. And people are like, how do you do that? And I was like, a lot of it is mind over matter. I was like, this is just, I have a goal in mind. This is something that I need to get done. I'm going to eat it. And that's
Well, so
that.
I still eat it, even though I don't have even though I don't have fat loss or any sort of goal.
Yeah, it's good. I don't mind it.
How do you cook your tempeh now then?
Okay, so now I marinated the day before in like a soy sauce and paprika and a little bit of honey. And then once it's been marinating for a day or two, I throw it in the air fryer.
Okay,
For about
fancy.
10
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's delicious now. So I'm no longer blending my tempeh.
Yeah, soy sauce is one of the best things with tempeh. I just do fry pan soy sauce and chop the tempeh up, and it's done in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Tastes incredible.
Yeah. Now I can stomach it every day, and I actually look forward to it. But that's not how the journey started 9 months ago.
Yeah, fair enough. What about the overall lifestyle with steps, going to the gym, meal prepping,
Yeah.
parenting,
So
and all balancing it all?
thankfully, I have a bit more flexibility than someone who needs to report to the office every morning. So after I drop the kids off at school, I would go to the gym, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have strength training. Tuesday and Thursday, I have cardio. So I would knock out my 1 hour workout or my 30-minute workout. And then I would spend an hour on the treadmill getting half of my steps for the day. So by the time I left the gym, I would be at about 5 or 6,000 steps, meaning, and my goal being 10,000 every day. And then I would be able to get the remaining 4 to 5,000 walking around and in my daily life. But I had to stay at the gym for that extra hour to make sure that I was getting half of my steps in, because I realized prior to RNT, my daily step count was probably around 5,000, which is half of what I was getting. As far as water intake goes, I bought one of those giant water bottles that is 3 liters, fill it up every morning. And I just know that before I go to bed, that's what has to happen. And I set an alarm on my phone that goes off every 30 minutes to take down a cup of water. So yeah, my entire day, an alarm is going off every 30 minutes, reminding me to have a drink of water. But it works, and I get it done. And by the time I go to bed, the water's gone. I unfortunately and fortunately have not been able to get into a good meal prepping habit. With Bhavin being gone here and there, our goal now, where we currently are, is we're trying to get into a rhythm of where all 4 of us are eating the same meal. Because the last 9 months, Bhavin was eating according to his meal plan and macros. I was eating according to my meal plan and macros. And then I was serving a third meal to the kids. Something that was nutritious and satisfying for them, because they were not going to drink a tempeh smoothie or have tempeh. And so we managed to do that this past year. But right now him and I, luckily, we're at a similar calorie count and macros. So it's been really nice the last month since Photoshoot, because I'm able to cook the same meal for all 4 of us. And I just, I then weigh it after cooking and split it into 4. And the kids are they're never asked to finish their meal. They can always pack it as a leftover. I think it's worth mentioning, because when I went into investment, I filled out the form saying, what are my goals now? I realized this past year that I had been struggling with food waste guilt. I come from a traditional Indian family where my parents grew up in a country where that kind of nourishment was not readily available. And so growing up in my house, my parents always encouraged us to finish the food on our plate. What was served to us, it needed to be gone. And so early on in raising our kids, I was doing the same thing to my kids. It was like, you have to sit there until you finish what's on your plate. And I realized this past year, that's where a lot of the overeating came from or comes from. But what had happened to me in my adult life is I was starting to, I feel guilty when there's food left on the plate. And I realized that if you're at home, you can always pack it and put it in the refrigerator. And, more likely than not, if you're out, you can package it to go. But I didn't want that food to end up in a landfill or go to waste, if that makes sense. And so I was shoveling it into my body instead. And so that's where I am now. I'm trying to learn intuitive eating, where I'm able to eat when I need to, but also leave items on the plate if I'm full. And that mainly comes into play if we're traveling or we're eating out, because at home, I know what I'm eating and I know what the meal plan is. So I'm only prepping what I'm going to eat. So yeah, we cook day to day, and breakfast and lunch is always the same. We prep overnight oats for the mornings. Bobbin takes a container with him. I have a container. Lunch is always the same for me. And dinner, we have been changing up daily, trying to find new and creative recipes that the kids would be interested in as well, while still maintaining the protein, healthy fats, and carbs that we need.
Is there a fully vegan household now?
No, I am the only one that's vegan. Bobbin eats chicken and fish if he's out for a work event, and the kids are vegetarian, so they still have dairy. So I think ultimately, in an ideal world, it would be a fully vegan household. But we're going to have to find our way there. But I'm incredibly proud of the three of them in the support that they've provided thus far with me going fully vegan, and not being able to have the dairy. So yeah, the meals that I cook in the evening that all four of us are eating are 100% vegan.
So it's only when they're out the house that they eat other foods, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's mainly if we're going out to a restaurant or if we're traveling. I
mean, it's still great. Yeah.
So we're making small changes and making our way there. Traveling has still been quite a bit of a challenge. Since I always mention this to Shauna, but I was like, the plant-based protein options are not readily available. And so I find myself having a lot of protein shakes when I'm traveling, and it's not ideal, but again, I'm a rule follower. And so I'm like, if this is where I need to stay and this is what I need to do to get it done, I'm packing my tub of protein supplement wherever I'm going. It's in my suitcase.
Yeah, it's tough when you're traveling because not everywhere's it's great. When I went to South Africa last November, we went to one of the garden route safari tours. They thought chicken was vegetarian. Like it was impossible. So I was basically having a shake, and I just asked them, "Could you just bring me some rice and veg?" And I'd have a shake at the table, and then just have rice and veg or whatever they give me. So it is tough in some places. It is getting easier each year that I'm getting there. But what are your reasons for being vegan, and how have you found the transition? Or what do you feel? Do you feel any different, even mentally?
I think it's twofold. Actually threefold, I'll say. I have wanted to be a veterinarian since the age of 7. So I care for animals, but I love them, and any sentient being, I don't want them to feel hurt or pain. Second is the environment. we'll be passing on um, Earth to our children. And I have read up on the deficits that eating meat can have on our environment. And third, and these are in no particular order, I think it's worth mentioning, is the impact that it has on my body. And yes, I have definitely, even just cutting out the dairy the last 9 months, I have never felt this healthy in my life. And that's at 39. I turn 40 next year. I have never felt this kind of energy. When I wake up in the morning and my alarm goes off, I don't feel the need to snooze. It's incredible. It has been life-changing, and have become so addicted to this feeling that I never want to go back. I also cut out alcohol this year. I think that's worth mentioning. I stopped drinking in January. Alcohol is inflammatory for our body, and that was, with so many doctors for 2 years telling me that it was inflammation in my body. Now I just try to eliminate anything that is inflammatory. But I feel great. I have no desire. I think about how I feel after I have a glass of wine or two the next morning, and I'm sluggish and the energy is low. And to me, it's not worth it anymore. And so I've completely cut it out, and I feel really great. And I just feel, very, very blessed to have taken this journey this past year.
Amazing. Why a photo shoot? Because you recently completed a photo shoot in September, end of August. Why?
Yeah.
What was the decision to do a photo shoot? Walk us through that process and the grind that there was to get there.
Yeah. So the grind is no joke. Last couple of weeks leading up to photo shoot, calories are low and activity is max. And you can go to some really dark places, but ultimately my why was enough to pull me out of that dark place. Hey, I have been diagnosed. I've overcome cancer. I can do this. I can handle the low calories and the energy output if I can do that. And so that really helped me get through the last couple of weeks leading into the photo shoot. My reasons for wanting to do photo shoot, well, hey, I worked really hard the last 9 months, and I wanted to be able to have some kind of memory of that. And that was encapsulated in the photo shoot. And also being a role model for my kids, and more than anything, my daughter. I want her to know it's okay to feel confident. If you've worked hard at something, there is a time and place. There's a time and place where you can showcase that, right? And so she saw the journey that I went through this past year, and I wanted her to know, hey, this is my reward. And so I got them involved. Bobbin and the kids, I had them come in for a couple of shots towards the end, and the kids were super, super excited. They wanted to pick out their outfit and what they were wearing.
Avengers.
The Avengers, they wanted their picture lifting weights. And because I was able to have some sugar that morning in terms of candy and gummies, that was another thing. They were like, oh, can we have that too? Can we have the gummies too? And I said, sure, we're all going to do this together. So this will help you. And ultimately, I'm really grateful for those photos that I have, because if I never do another photo shoot in my life again, those photos remind me of the journey that we went through and how I want to feel every day. That energy, that beauty, that compassion for myself, that confidence, that all lies there in those photographs. And so if I lose my way or I forget that, I can look at those and be reminded of where I want to be.
What was the improvement in confidence for you? Where did you feel you were lacking it potentially?
Yeah. So my entire life, I have been pretty petite. I'm 5 feet tall. My nickname when I was younger was Little. Got to college, that nickname stuck with me, and then I picked up another nickname, Smalls or Smalley, along the way. And so I had never really struggled with my weight or had any confidence issues related to that. But after I saw the transformations and I saw the transformation that happened with Bhavin in my household, I said, wow, like I would like to look like that and feel what they're feeling too. And so it was a transformation in confidence from the inside out. And what I mean by that is when I started feeling well internally, because mind you, I felt like crap for the last 2 years prior to diagnosis. Just that was the worst I ever felt in my life. And that was day in and day out for 2 years. So once I started to feel well again, like I said, I became addicted to that high. And then I started to see the transformation on the outside as well. I had never seen abs in my life before, especially after giving birth to 2 kids. I was like, wow, my biceps, there was, the cuts in my arms. And a lot of it was when I went to the gym, just as recently as a couple weeks ago, there was an elderly gentleman, and he came over and he said, if I get in a back alley fight, I want you there defending me. And I was like, okay, brilliant. I got your back. And then I had, like goblet squats. I'm doing 80-pound barbell right now. I've had a number of people come up to me at the gym, I think just looking at my size. And they were like, how are you?
You're doing an 80-pound dumbbell for goblet squats?
80 pounds,
wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Thanks. And
37. Oh.
Yeah. And I think if you look at my frame and just being petite, yeah, people are a little bit shocked by that. And I keep telling them, in January, I was at 0 pounds. I was just doing the squat movement with no dumbbell. And today I'm able to do 80 pounds. And so that comes with the confidence too, the internal confidence and how I'm looking externally. When I look in the mirror today, I love the person that I see, and I'm not sure that ever existed before up until now. So yeah, thank you, RNT, for that. That is, that's big. It's huge.
Amazing. And what's been the impact on the family? Bhavin already had started the journey, but as a collective now, what's changed?
As a collective now is that when we're all feeling healthy together, we're all happier, and also the energy in our house has changed. It's a really positive energy. Yeah, it's a really positive energy, and we encourage one another to remind ourselves about the journey that we've been through and where we'd like to stay. So, for instance, we were on vacation this past week and we were eating meals at a resort. But yesterday I texted him the meal plan for dinner and he said, I can't wait. And that's because we were going to get back to our meal at home, which we now feel is so nourishing. And it's so exciting to come back to our home cooked meals and the plans that we have laid out. And that's not something, we would have said a year ago. We probably would have came home, had a bowl of cereal and milk and called it a day. But we really genuinely look forward to the activity in our house. Our kids, they both got Fitbit watches last year. And so both of them also try to get 10,000 steps every day before going to bed. And if we don't have it, we all hop in the car and go to the gym and walk around the track together. It gives us moments together where we're connecting with one another. Our daughter, most recently, they have set up a kids training class at the gym, and both the kids have joined. A couple weeks ago, she woke up at 5 a.m., came to Bhavan's bedside and said, "Daddy, I want to go work out. I want to show you the circuit that I learned at the workout class." And I turned to him and I was like, he's like, "I'm going." He's like, that's his why is the kids, long story short. But he's like, "I'm waking up right now and I'm taking her." So he took an hour out of his morning, and she showed him an hour-long circuit and what she learned. And she now regularly will come to his bedside if she slept enough the night before and say, "Daddy, I want to go to the gym and I want to work out." So this has touched
Wow.
all four of us. And in terms of the foundations that we've learned, we're all drinking more water. We're all sleeping the amount of hours that we need to. We all know how to adequately get good protein with, three of us being vegetarian vegan. We all are working to get our 10,000 steps a day. We're all ticking all the boxes together, including our 9 and 7-year-old. And I think that keeps us all going. It's a very healthy cycle. They're inspiring us. We're inspiring them. It's extended. I texted you a couple of weeks ago. It's extended to our family as well. We got my dad and my mom an Apple Watch, and my dad doesn't sleep until he has his 10,000 steps. They come to the gym with us every time they're visiting. Most recently, I told him to start getting on the machines, without adding any weight, but just getting comfortable with the movements. Mind you, my dad is 73, and I would have never imagined seeing him on a machine at the gym.
Yeah, that would change his life.
Yeah, it's been life-changing for all of us. And he texts me and he's so grateful. Thank you so much for, getting this watch and encouraging us to get our steps, because they're feeling it too. They're feeling the energy from the inside out. And at that age, it's really encouraging. And so we're all inspiring each other to stay on this journey. And do the best that we can. Most recently, my in-laws came over and they had Bhavin set them up with a meal plan, so they could start to make some small changes. So everybody is all in trying to do what they can. Because again, when I was diagnosed, we all went through the cancer journey together. And I think it was a wake-up call, not only for me and those around me, but also, 2 sets of parents. And we see siblings now too. Everybody's in it. So, yeah.
Amazing. What almost kept you from starting this journey a year ago?
Fear of failure. I've always had a lot of expectations of myself. And in life, anything that keeps me from achieving something has always been fear of failure. Because I feel like once I put my mind to something, I want to be able to achieve that goal. And so I kept doubting myself. I said, what if I can't stay vegan? What if I can't follow this program? And it just gets so overwhelming and stressful that I decide to just give up on it. That would have been failure for me, because if I've decided to do something, I want to see it through until the end. And so that was the only thing holding me back. I think there was also slight hesitation with what I was going to be letting go of. Like, am I going to be able to give up the dairy? And I had decided at that point that I was going to give up the alcohol. So much of our social life, I've realized this past year, revolves around food and drinking. Anytime someone asks if we want to do something, do you want to meet for lunch? Do you want to meet for dinner? And I was thinking, am I going to be able to give all those things up? Am I going to be able to put my blinders on and stick with this and give up certain things so that I can reach my goal? And it ended up being, honestly, the biggest gift and treasure, because now when I reach out to my friends, do you want to go for a walk? Like, if I'm initiating it, do you want to go rock climbing? Do you want to go to yoga class? Instead of centering our meetings around a meal or desserts or a drink, which is where I was a year ago. So there's no fear of that anymore. And yeah, when the days got tough, and they definitely did, I remember being in tears someday. I'm just like, I've been eating the same thing for months. I went to the movies with the family one day, and my daughter had got like a big tub of popcorn, and I struggled a lot sitting in that movie theater. I'm like, do I reach for the popcorn? Do I not reach for the popcorn? It's not on my meal plan. How will I buffer? Just like all of these thoughts going through my head. Like, when you're in a fat loss phase, what will happen when I step on the scale tomorrow? It's buttered popcorn. And it was this vicious cycle. But ultimately, I have learned that it's all about balance. And if I do decide to make that decision, be okay with that decision. Like, if I had reached for the popcorn, or if I have the popcorn, don't have guilt associated with it now. It's something that I've decided to have, and it's okay. And it's not the end of the world. I am eating healthier, 99% of the time. And so I found this place of balance and peace, as far as my nutrition is concerned.
Amazing. What's next for Nisha then on this journey?
So I'm currently in investment, and I'm signing up for year 2. I have some goals as far as working on particular muscle groups, and I've loved being with RNT this year and want to continue the journey for another year. And I know it's been life-changing and transformative for our family. So what's next is I'm going to continue to push hard for the goals that I've set, and continue to live life every day and enjoy the small moments.
And if you were speaking to someone at the early stages of their journey right now, what would you tell them?
Take it one day at a time, and remember that every day is a new day to start all over again. So if you had the bucket of popcorn last night, it's okay. Wake up and try again, and keep trying every day. And if you do, you will achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself.
Amazing. Any final words for the listeners?
No, I just, yes, I guess. Thank you for creating this program. I cannot say it enough. So grateful the impact that it has had on myself and our family. It has really taught me how to live. And so I really appreciate all of my coaches, you, everyone who has supported and stood by us while we went through this journey.
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Nisha, and being so open and honest with your journey. It's inspiring. You're a very strong woman, and I'm excited to see the next chapter of your journey.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Akash.